do that again. We're going to call the meeting of the CIC to order. Mr. Mills, I guess, would you like to take a roll, or?
Sure.
Mr. McElravy, I don't know.
Mr. McElravy? Here. Mr. Iona? Mr. Mills is here. Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here. All right. You have been provided with a copy of the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any motions at this time?
I motion to approve the minutes.
Any seconds?
I'll second it.
Motion by Rajagopal, second by Unger. Are there any questions, concerns, comments with regard to the minutes that have been provided in your meeting packet?
None.
None.
Seeing and hearing none, we'll call this to a vote, to a roll call vote, please.
Mr. McElravy? Aye. I vote aye. Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye. So at this point, I probably should have done this before approval of minutes. I'd like to amend the meeting agenda and I guess we'll make it we'll make it 4A to have citizen comment.
That would be after adjournment, so you probably need to have it before that.
All right, then would be,
2A.
okay, 2A, we'll do that. 2A, citizen comment. And Mr. Mills, if we could put that in future,
Yeah, I apologize.
that's okay.
Yep.
I motion to make 2A citizen comment. Are there any seconds with regard to that motion?
Second.
Second, any discussion?
So we're amending the agenda and putting in a citizen comment
Yeah, under
under 2A.
2A.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to make it 3A, but there already is a 3A, because I'd like to be after new business perhaps, but I think that's,
Make it 3C.
all right. Well, then let's,
Is there a person here that wants to speak? Does that suit?
no, I don't know that there is or isn't. I just want to make that available to citizens. So I don't have any indication. We can keep it at 2A, and if we can have for this time.
That's fine.
We can keep it 2A.
Yeah.
That's fine.
All right, any other concerns, comments? Can we go ahead and call the vote on that?
McElravy? Aye. Mills votes aye. Unger?
Aye.
Rajagopal?
Aye.
Waller?
Aye. All right, so then we go to 2A now, which is citizen comment. Are there any citizens in the audience wishing to comment? I apologize, that wasn't on the original, but it will be on future ones. So then we go to 3, new business. You have in front of you 3A, the discussion, disposition of property. I guess, Mr. Mills, would you like to take that away?
Sure, yep. The board should recall that we have been transferring property from, there were 2 properties that the Board of Trustees and authorized or initiated the transfer of the property to the CIC, and the CIC accepted that property. We have filed all the necessary papers with Hamilton County to affect that change, but it hasn't shown up yet on the auditor's website that it is owned by the CIC yet. When it does become owned by the CIC, we've had some conversation about how we wanted to dispose of those 2 properties at the CIC, but I just want to bring that back up because it's been a couple of months since we had that conversation, and I want to make sure that I'm still understand the will of the board and how you want to dispose of that. So options include putting a yard sign in the front, like the Hamilton County Port Authority does. They put a yard sign in the front and said this is for sale by the Port Authority. In our case, it would say for sale by CIC. And keep it up for a period of time and collect, offers if people, want to make an offer on it. That seems like an easy way to do it. We could do a bid or an auction. Whatever it is that you guys would like to do, I'm happy to do that once it transfers.
We talked about we have like some real estate agents we can make a proposal that they'll be use our liaison for us, do this kind of transaction. We talked about that.
That's an option too. The board would like to do that.
The way, so if you put sale by CIC, would the people contact you or?
They would contact, they'd contact the township or the CIC, me. They'd contact me, and then we would save the 3 or 6% fee that would go to a realtor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, in the future, we may have like some real estate, have, some other township has that. You know, we will send a proposals, we want to be liaison for that.
Sure. So we could do it in
That way easy, for them. They will connect with the finance, the bankers and everything, and, you know, they know the, you
Yeah,
know?
likely it would be, because it's just a blank lot, and so I don't imagine that we're talking big dollars.
Yeah.
And so, 3% of $1,000, is what,
Oh,
30
okay.
bucks or something like that would be the fee to a realtor. So we're not going to get a ton of interest from realtors, I don't think. In order to identify a realtor, we'd probably, with procurement, have to go through like a request for proposals to have people submit, that they'd like to be the realtor for these transactions. I don't know. I don't know. It just seems a little bit complicated for the a couple $1,000 transaction, but
alright.
I'm open to it.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I think our goal is to not own the lots because we're expending,
Yeah.
whatever maintenance or whatever we have to do to them. I'd at the very least want to make sure the neighbors knew, and I think it'd be proper to put a sign in the yard. But then we would have to advertise beyond the neighborhood, whether it was on our website or whatever.
Sure.
The goal being that we don't want to be sitting on empty lots.
That's right. And there has been interest. So I know that there was a woman that has attended these meetings and the trustee meetings who is interested in the property in, oh gosh, I'm blanking
Is it
on the
Planet?
name. Planet, yeah.
Has she reached out to
Oh,
you
yeah,
at all, or
she's
has
very
she made an offer?
No, because we don't,
We haven't decided how we're going to get rid of it yet?
well, we don't, the auditor's website's not showing the ownership in our name yet. So it hasn't fully transferred yet. Once they update their transfers, I'm sure that that'll show up. And then at that point, I'd feel comfortable putting a sign in the yard saying that we're the owner and we can sell it.
So it's my understanding that the two properties we're speaking of are kind of nominal amounts. But I see here kind of in the packet, it talks about how to handle the disposition of properties in the future. So I'm not concerned about these properties as much as I am future properties that may not be nominal amounts. And what kind of precedent of process do we set for those future properties? And I agree with Mr. Rajagopal about getting it to somebody whose job it is to sell real estate, but then we've opened up another can of worms on the bid process and things like that. And I think that, do you do a request for proposal saying that you will handle all township residential real estate for a 2 or 3 year period, and then you get back to us with a percentage? I think that it would have to be more all-encompassing like that. If that, I would certainly support that. But the idea of now, although it works for these two properties, I think, to put a sign and try to sell it, my concern is I don't want that to become a precedent for future properties and maybe worth more.
Sure.
Do we need to, are we compelled to have a legal appraisal of the property before we would sell it?
I don't think so.
Okay.
The CIC can.
I guess that's when a government entity wants to buy a property, they have to get an appraisal. Because I remember when the school district was going to buy the lot behind Handy Tool Rental, and they got an appraisal on the lot,
Okay.
and they didn't like it, so they got another appraisal on the lot, and then they did like it.
Got it.
And
I can double check that, but my sense is that we would not have to get an appraisal.
and so we could do anything from a for sale by owner to whatever.
Yeah.
So based upon what you've I don't know if you've spoken to other townships, but typically what's the garden variety kind of policy for something like this?
It's all over the place, and it's really dependent on the type of property that's being sold, right? So, from a vacant lot, one of the ways that we've disposed of vacant lots in the past is through the vacant yard program, vacant lot to side yard program. That's been successful with those. In this instance, there appears to be market-driven interest in building a new home on these vacant lots. So, I think that would be the best possible outcome if we could add a new home to the community on a vacant lot. That's success, I think.
So what is your preference for this? Do you have one?
Yeah, following the Port Authority and the land bank's model of trying to for sale by owner first, and I think that they're gonna sell because we've already seen interest and there's interested parties in buying these things. So I think that's the easiest way to go. And our goal here is not to, profiteer. Our goal is to get transition a vacant lot into a home that has value and is paying taxes.
So I also don't want to put you in a situation where maybe, I don't know who comes up with the price, and somebody says, hey, he sold it too high or he sold it too low.
Yeah, so I would, when we get an offer, I would bring it to the board for approval. So I would probably call a special meeting and have the board consider the offer.
And my last question to you, and then I'll let everybody, I'm sorry, but
No, go ahead.
how would this answer my concern about the precedent for future? Could we then move future items? Could it be a case-by-case basis at that point? Is that?
I think so, and I think that there's different, there's, recall that for a short time, we owned the Fireside Motel, and that's a very different type of property, a very different project, and the goal here is to take a vacant, unproductive lot and get it back into productive use. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Any other additional?
Only if anybody, you're the chair, or if anybody in the audience had any comments on our discussion.
Sure.
Cool.
I think at this point, I don't, if I'm rushing, let me know, but this has kind of been on our radar for a while. I think at this point, I'd be open to a motion expressing what the board's preference is in this, so that we give Mr. Mills kind of direction on how we want to proceed. If folks are prepared for that motion.
Let's continue the discussion. I'm fine with it for sale by owner. I don't want to sit on these lots. I don't want to be sitting here 6 months from now, still sitting on them. So
That's fair.
if you want to, what do you think, Raj?
So,
I think get rid of it quickly so that.
But it needs to be advertised.
Property will be cleaned up, and whoever buys it, they have to follow the regulation that they have to clean up, that keep the property maintained well.
Sure, so if they, and I think another stipulation should be that there is a development plan for the vacant lot,
Right.
right? So that they are not just gonna,
I don't know that we can legally do that, can we? Who knows?
yeah, I'll find out.
I don't know that we need it as a stipulation of bidding, but it certainly can be a stipulation of accepting bids, because one of the purposes of CIC is that we take not the highest, but the best bid, and that takes into account other qualitative measures like that. Sure. So at this point, then, I guess I'll make a motion to direct Mr. Mills to move towards selling these two specific properties by owner and handling the marketing aspect of it through the township.
And I'll second that to get the floor open for discussion on your motion.
All right? Any further discussion?
Sure. So you're going to put a sign in the yard, and you're going to advertise it on our website. The sign in the yard is so that the immediate neighbors know what's going on, and the website so that however we sell things. I don't know if you need to put an ad in court clerk or whatever, or I don't want to start spending a bunch of money, but we do need to follow whatever's legal, so.
Yep, will do.
So advertise it on the website, and if we're compelled to, which we probably are, put an ad in the court index, which is the service publication for the county.
Yep, cool. Yeah, I'll find out what the requirement is.
Okay, and so that's my discussion.
Would it be fair to make the kind of the roadmap what we do for a public hearing? Identical steps, because in essence, it's offering a piece of land open to the public.
Well, so one of the good things about having it in the CIC's ownership is that it's easier to sell it, right? So that it makes it, the process is less formal, less cumbersome. You don't need to have a public hearing. We would have, what I'm suggesting is that if we get a good offer, I would bring it to the board and have the board,
Okay.
accept that offer and transfer.
I'm talking about the advertising it, similar steps, and it'd be advertised, 30 days in advance.
On our website.
Yeah, the same kind of,
And I can put it out on Circle and
Right.
social media and all those kinds of things.
Which is fine, but from a legal point of view, it should be on
Sure,
our website.
sounds good.
And then you'll find out if it needs to be in,
Some other place, yeah,
and you might ask the recorder's office how they do things.
yeah, yeah.
And it sounds like you know how the Port Authority does it. How does the Port Authority do it?
Pretty sure they just put a for sale by owner, and they've got, I've seen their yard signs around, and it's, they own a ton of lots. And if,
So they're not moving them.
well, they're a land bank, and so a lot of the lots that they have, are lots and properties that the market just doesn't want. You know, there's no market for them, and so they're holding on to them and assembling, you know, different assemblages of land for the purpose of redevelopment in the future.
I think I will yield for a second. Ms. Moore has a comment, and we did ask for a citizen.
Thank you. I know you want to sell it for $1,000, but what if more people, you know, want it? I mean, could they like raise the bid and so it could go for a lot more? Or-
I'd want to sell it for I'd want to maximize it, absolutely. So 1,000 was just like an illustrative example.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
sure.
And I don't know if you would take sealed bids and take the highest bidder, or have a,
Because it wouldn't be a bidding process, it would be it's just like buying a piece of property. So it's for sale by owner. Think of it as, you know,
Right.
somebody would make an offer, and I would bring that offer to this board, and share with the board what the intended purpose was, and then you guys would say yes or no, and then we just move on.
so,
Go ahead.
so we wouldn't have a cutoff date. You might bring an offer next month,
Yeah.
and it's for $2,000, and we might say yes or no, and if we say no, then
Yes,
somebody else needs to
that's right,
either counter, or some other entity needs to come up with some more money.
that's right. But as
I'd
I
also ask that those offers be brought to us blind,
okay,
not knowing who it is, and,
okay,
yeah.
fine. Okay, very good.
So now, so is that the end of the discussion? Now we need to
Mr.
go-
Rajagopal, do you have?
Uh,
Go ahead.
Did you have any comments, Raj?
No, just, I think,
All right, we'll go ahead and call the vote on the motion. Then the motion was to authorize Mr. Mills in the township to advertise and market these two specific properties as listed. I don't have the addresses in front of me. One's on Planet and the other, I'm dropping a ball on here.
It's the ones we discussed at
Right.
the last,
two
Yeah.
property we discussed.
Yeah,
Got it.
and that it should be reflected in the minutes of this meeting, those two addresses and parcel numbers.
Sounds good. Okay, thanks. Mr. McAravy? Aye. I vote aye. Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Waller?
all right.
Very good.
Okay, next we go to item 3B, a motion to accept financial statement from the third quarter of 2021. Mr. McAravy or Mr. Mills? I don't know.
Mr. McAravy? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this will be brief. There was no financial activity for the CIC in the third quarter of the year, and the statements reflect that lack of activity. So the recommendation from staff is a motion to accept the financial statements for the third quarter of 2021.
I motion that we accept the financial statements from the third quarter of 2021.
I second it.
Any discussion?
None from me.
Okay, at this point, I'll call for a vote.
Mr. McAravy?
Aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Very good. I would say, Mr. Waller, could, just for a second, that this is our last meeting of the CIC before the board reforms. So per the bylaws, the board is reconstituted every 2 years following a trustee election. So this is the last scheduled meeting of this CIC board. It will effectively not go away, but the board will need to be reconstituted in January of next year. So be thinking about appointments to the board, and we'll handle those in January, if that's okay.
You're talking to Mr. Waller
Oh, yeah, yes, and
So-
whomever, yes,
and whoever's sitting up here.
that's right. But we've had a very successful term, I think, for the CIC in these past 2 years. I think it's an effective tool, and I think that it has a lot more promise. We could be using it a lot more in redevelopment.
And so our policy with these 2 lots that we discussed, there must be other lots or properties that the township, should be thinking about disposing of.
The township doesn't own many lots. Very few, in fact, that are not in floodplain. We hold a number of parcels that are in floodplain that we've received through FEMA flood mitigation projects. But in terms of just random, residential lots, I don't know. I'm not going to say there aren't any, but there are very few if there are any. Typically, how we receive them is the Port Authority has this way of collecting lots from tax foreclosure, and they will a couple times a year publish a list, county-wide list, and we look to see which ones are in Colerain Township, and if any of those have strategic importance or we think that we could reposition them, then we'll tell the port, yeah, we'll take those, and they will donate them to the CIC, and then we can do that. It happens rarely, once, twice a year.
The ones that are in the floodplain,
Yep.
we can't, not that anybody want to buy something in the floodplain, but if they wanted to buy a vacant lot, and they were the next door neighbor that was closest, that was above the floodplain, because,
Right?
so we wouldn't be interested in selling that to
I don't believe we're able to.
I think those are encumbered because the federal government paid for them. We're not allowed to resell them as far as I understand.
That's my understanding also. And those are owned not by the CIC, but by the township, so.
right, and I was just thinking, if I was the next house that was above that elevation, I would just as soon, as the township, get rid of it and let them cut the grass and maintain it.
Sure.
I guess right now they just get unlimited use of it because it's the empty lot next door.
Yeah,
So-
and if you go down to Blanchetta, there's,
That's what I'm thinking of.
yeah, there are a number of, there's 4 buildings that were demolished in the last couple of months. One of the buildings was a 10-unit apartment building, so it's got a pretty large footprint. But slowly but surely, all those homes that are in the floodplain right now are being bought by FEMA. in
Yeah,
terms of-
that's a building that a stormwater district is giving to township
Yep,
practically for,
yeah, so the Hamilton
can
County.
develop a park or something like that.
We could, yeah, and actually, one of the thoughts that we were talking about was having sort of a charrette on site next spring, where we go down there and say, like, what could we do, with this that's something more than just grass that we're mowing? Is there a stormwater project that we could do to, or a park project, or
Yeah,
what? But, yeah,
well, that's good.
cool, all right.
Any additional comments,
Not for me.
questions, concerns, advice? Anybody want to make a motion?
We got a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn in a second. Any discussion?
Not for me.
Call for vote.
Mr. McRae.
Aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Unger.
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal.
Aye.
And Mr. Waller.
Aye. So I have us being adjourned, I can't see the 6:25, is that right?